The rain hit the metal roof of the stop-and-go like it was trying to break through. Mark didn't like working the night shift, but he told himself it was just another job, just another shift, just a few more hours until he could go home and watch TV until he fell asleep on the couch. He always did that. It was the routine that kept him sane. The clock read 10:54 p.m., 6 minutes left before he could lock the doors. The fluorescent lights in the drinks aisle buzzed and flickered, casting shadows that looked like they moved on their own. Mark sighed and flipped the door sign from open to closing soon. He was alone on that shift. He wasn't supposed to be. He knew the rules but figured it was just the manager being superstitious or some old employee being dramatic. Lock up at 11 p.m., never check the bathroom, never work alone. He had repeated it with sarcasm when he first got the manual. Of course he didn't believe it. No one would. At 10:56 p.m., the camera at the back of the store started glitching. Mark frowned and tapped the old monitor like that would help. The image shook, black lines tearing across the screen. A loud pop echoed from the hallway to the bathroom. "Damn it," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Not again. He grabbed the key, walked to the back of the store, and froze. The back door was cracked open. He was absolutely sure it had been closed just minutes ago. "Hello?" he called, trying to sound confident. "Is someone there?" No answer, just silence, so heavy it felt like it had weight. Then came the first sound, a soft tapping, like fingernails scraping the inside of the door. Slow, impatient. Mark swallowed hard. Look, if this is a joke, it's not funny. Another knock, louder. He took a step back. The hallway felt smaller. The air was cold. Colder than it should have been, like when the gas station's freezer didn't shut all the way and pulled all the cold air into the store. Except this was coming from outside. The door creaked, opening another inch. And then came the whisper, a low, childlike voice, as if it was rising up from the tile itself. Mark. His name. No one was supposed to know he was there alone. The whisper came again. Mark. His stomach dropped. The light flickered once, then came back. The whole hallway felt like it was breathing, like some animal trying to fill its lungs. He stepped back again. Suddenly, the door flew open like it had been kicked. In the dark, Mark faced a massive shadow, completely still, with two yellow eyes glowing in the pitch black. A single growl filled the hallway, and then a guttural voice called his name again. Mark. The creature moved forward. From outside on the empty street, you could hear Mark's screams inside the store. "Help! Somebody help me!" Crack. Another crack. But unfortunately for Mark, no one was walking past the store at that hour of the night. The next day, Samantha, the morning shift clerk, unlocked the store in her usual start-of-shift mood. She took 2 steps inside and smelled the strong, metallic scent before she saw the floor. The tile was stained with fresh blood, like someone had dragged a body down the hallway. Her heart started racing. She walked toward the back, hands shaking, and there she found Mark's body, torn apart, scattered like something had ripped him open from the inside out. Rain poured down in thick streams over the empty road, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and old gasoline. The car moved slowly, the wipers struggling against the water, while Steve tapped the steering wheel with his usual restlessness. The radio crackled from the storm and he switched stations every 5 seconds like he was stuck in a conversation with an impatient ghost. Joanna didn't look up from her tablet. The bluish glow lit up the dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights and gave her face a hard, focused look. She scrolled slowly, reading every detail like it was a forensic report. "Tell me we didn't just drive 2 hours through this downpour because some guy slipped on a pile of recycling," Steve said, trying to sound calm, but with his jaw clenched tight. "Employee found dismembered behind a convenience store," Joanna replied without blinking. "Riverdale. Night shift. Body in 3 pieces. Blood trail to the back door. Cameras cut out right at that moment." "Oh, great. Because nothing says peaceful Saturday like someone blowing up next to a dumpster," Steve said, though his tone was more anxious than funny. "It wasn't an explosion," Joanna said, "and it wasn't a robbery. The police are calling it a homicide, but a lot of things don't add up." Steve took his eyes off the road for a second to glance at his sister. "Like what?" The cameras caught a hooded figure going into the bathroom minutes before the attack, then just static. When the footage comes back, the body's already outside. There's not enough time for someone to drag all that without leaving clear marks. Physics doesn't add up. Steve let out a low whistle. Great. I already like this case less. The tablet buzzed in Joanna's hand. She raised an eyebrow at the unknown number. Must be her, she said, answering on the second ring. Samantha. The voice on the other end was tense and shaky, a voice full of built-up exhaustion, the voice of someone who had tried to ignore the impossible but couldn't anymore. Steve slowed down and let his sister take the lead on the call. I don't know how to explain it, Samantha was saying. It wasn't a robber. It wasn't some crazy customer. This stuff has been happening for years. People disappear. Others show up hurt. There's movement in the store when no one's there. And the rules, they were made by an old manager. Everyone thinks they're nonsense, but when someone breaks them, things go wrong. Always. What kind of rules? Joanna asked. Never work alone. Lock all doors at exactly 11. Never check out noises in the bathroom after 11:30. Don't sell alcohol after 2. Don't let anyone in if the lights flicker 3 times. Don't look directly into the bathroom mirror if the light's acting up. Don't. She stopped, taking a deep breath. It's a lot, Samantha said. But I know when something bad wants to get in, and last night it really wanted to. Joanna leaned forward, locking eyes with Steve, who was already frowning. You said the cameras always cut out when something happens, Joanna said. Always, Samantha replied. And when they come back, there's just silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for something. Steve whispered to his sister. This smells like something big. Something bad. Joanna gave a small nod and returned to the phone. We're 15 minutes away, she said. Stay calm. We'll figure out what's going on. Just before sunset, the car pulled into the lot in front of the Stop and Go. The sign flickered with that tired electric hum you only find in places that should have been renovated years ago. The parking lot was nearly empty. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the wind made the streetlights groan. The store felt off the map, like it had been ripped out of somewhere forgotten and dropped right here. Smells like old coffee and death, Steve muttered as he stepped out of the car. My favorite kind of welcome. You only like places that feel like they're gonna kill us, Joanna shot back. Keeps me motivated. Inside the store, they found Samantha by the coffee machine. She was holding the cup with both hands, like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Deep dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a rush, wrinkled uniform. The kind of person who had lived through more rough nights than she should have. Thanks for coming, she said. And it didn't sound polite. It sounded like relief. Steve gave a soft smile, trying not to look as tense as he felt. Of course. We're good at handling weird stuff, and this one sounds really weird. I just don't want it to happen again, Samantha said. I have 2 kids, Emma and Jacob. They can't lose their mom. Joanna stepped closer and gently touched her arm. We're gonna help you keep this place safe. Detective Bennett walked into the store a few minutes later, carrying the kind of tired look that said he'd rather be home watching TV. He explained the official version. Possible robbery, maybe a psychopath, someone who ran out the back. Steve pretended to agree, but his eyes were already scanning every corner, like the lie was smeared across the walls. Planted evidence. Standard homicide, serial killer. None of it added up. The body had been too dismembered. The blood was spread in a strange pattern. Incomplete marks on the floor. No signs of struggle. No sound caught. When Bennett left, Steve turned to Joanna. Robber my ass. This is wrong on an Olympic level. Thomas, the store manager, came out of the stockroom and greeted them like he'd been waiting for months. If you want, you can stay for tonight's shift. I already spoke to the team. You'll be here as security consultants. Security for what? Steve asked. Thomas took a deep breath. For whatever's trying to get in. Joanna exchanged a serious look with her brother. We're staying. As they stepped behind the counter to start their sweep of the store, the small camera mounted in the ceiling corner slowly turned, tracking their movement, like something was watching. The machine let out a soft buzz, almost curious, before returning to its original position. The rain had stopped, But the world still felt damp and tired when Steve and Joanna stepped back into the Stop and Go to begin their so-called security audit. Samantha guided them like someone leading paramedics into a failing body, and the store really did feel like an organism breathing the wrong way. Steve started with the cameras. He walked around with a fake clipboard in hand and quick scanning eyes, checking corners, convex mirrors, blind spots. He pointed to one of the cameras above the drink fridge. This thing covers less than half the aisle. If someone wanted to do something here, they could tap dance and no one would see it. The cameras never help, Samantha said. They never work when we need them to. American technology at its finest, Steve muttered. Always dies the second it has to do real work. While he mapped the equipment, Joanna watched everything with her sharp, clinical eye. She noticed the way the shelves were arranged, the faint symbols scratched near the service door, the old stickers half buried under layers of paint. Every detail seemed to hold a story no one wanted to tell. "Did you see this?" Joanna murmured to Steve as she ran her hand along the frame of the side door. Marks. Small, almost invisible, scratched with something sharp. They didn't form any clear symbols. They looked more like attempts to reinforce the material, like whoever made them believed the door had to be held shut from the inside. "This doesn't give me a good feeling," Steve said. "Marks like this are never a good sign." "They're not," Samantha replied. "Thomas has been scratching those into the doors ever since the old manager disappeared. Says it helps keep the store safe." They exchanged a silent look. When a gas station manager started carving makeshift talismans into door frames, it meant reality in that place had broken a long time ago. Thomas called them into the office, where an old laptop displayed choppy clips from the security footage. The video glitched so much it looked like it was shot in the 90s. Samantha hit play. Mark appeared walking toward the bathroom. Then a hooded figure showed up at the edge of the camera frame, but the face never came into focus. Then came the static. 1 second, 2, 3, then just the dark trail down the hallway. "That's all there is," Thomas said. "And there's no audio, no shadow. The lights didn't fail in the system, but they went out in there. Again," Steve muttered. "American technology at its most dead." Samantha forced a weak smile, silently thankful for his nervous humor. Back out in the store, the pair began searching for physical clues. There were old stains near the back door, almost black. Steve crouched down, sniffed lightly, and made a face. "That's not just blood," he said. "There's a chemical smell, kind of burnt, not gas or regular oil." "It looks old," Joanna said, "like it's been here for a long time." Steve glanced at the bathroom with a suspicious expression. "You know what this reminds me of?" he asked. "Don't say demons," Joanna replied. "Demons." She rolled her eyes, but he gave a quick smirk. The smirk vanished when Samantha stepped back, arms crossed tightly. "We already thought it was that," she said. "We put salt by the doors one night. It didn't work. Nothing changes anything in here, just the rules." Joanna studied the floor. Mark's dried trail didn't make sense. The blood started near the bathroom and led to the back door like he'd been dragged from inside. "The police think someone dragged the body to fake a scene," Joanna said. "The body wasn't moved," Samantha said firmly. "Mark never left the counter on his own. He wouldn't have broken the rules. He was scared, really scared." Steve looked at the bathroom again. "Then something's in there." The door creaked open softly, like it had heard the accusation and was answering. Samantha jumped back. "Rule 3, she said. "Don't open the bathroom door after 11:30. "You realize that just makes me want to go in more," Steve said. "Don't be an idiot." The door closed on its own. That was when William walked in. Tall, thin, wearing a heavy coat despite the mild weather. He grabbed a coffee cup, filled it to the brim, and gave a quick nod to Samantha and Thomas, who were nearby. "He didn't pay," Steve muttered to the side. "No one charges him," Samantha said. "He works here. Kind of. It's complicated. Kind of works here," Steve repeated. "And doesn't pay for coffee. Clear sign he's something supernatural." "Steve," Joanna grumbled. "I'm just saying. Grim Reaper vibes." William left without making a sound, like a shadow that had chosen a human shape out of convenience. Joanna followed him with her eyes. "You're right. He's strange," she admitted. "But he's not a demon. Then we're on the wrong track, Steve said. Again. They ran a few quick tests with salt and iron, watching the customers who walked in. Nothing reacted, nothing shifted, nothing hissed. It looked like a normal night in a normal convenience store. Until it wasn't. The door opened to let in one of the regulars. Joanna recognized the face, but not the body. The woman's neck tilted to the right at an impossible angle. Her head hung as if her muscles no longer remembered their job. She walked to the cereal aisle with stiff, awkward steps, lifting her arms like they weighed more than they should. "Steve," Joanna said quietly. "I see her." The woman's gaze passed straight through the boxes without focus. She touched the products like someone learning how hands work for the first time. She picked up a box, turned it upside down, dropped it, grabbed another, squeezed it until the carton crumpled. "This isn't a demon," Steve whispered. "This is something else." Samantha rushed over and pulled them by the arm. "Rule 4, she said, voice urgent. "Don't interact with anyone who comes in moving the wrong way." The customer left minutes later, leaving behind a trail of crushed boxes and the feeling that something inside her was trying to understand how to be a person. Steve took a deep breath. "This is a badly worn suit," he said. "Like something got in and is trying to figure out how to pilot a body." Joanna looked down the empty aisle. Something got in, but it didn't come through the door. The store seemed to wait for their answer, like it had been holding its breath. Like reality, there had already started to break long before they realized it. The next shift started with a strange kind of silence, the kind that tightens the air before anything even happens. The store was quieter than the night before. The fluorescent lights buzzed persistently like insects trapped behind glass. The digital clock above the counter seemed to drag every minute, like time itself was choking. Steve paced through the store with short, restless steps. He was usually the type to crack jokes to cut the tension, but that night the jokes came out broken. He stopped in front of the energy drink fridge, staring at his own reflection in the glass door. "I can't stand a case where there's nothing to shoot at," he said. "You just want something to show up and kill customers so you don't get bored," Joanna replied. "I want something to show up so we can figure this out. This store feels like a sick organism, and we're inside its stomach." Joanna didn't argue. There was something alive in the air, something slow, spread out like a fever you can't locate. She walked over to Samantha, who was restocking the chip shelf for the 4th time in the past half hour. Her hands were trembling slightly, not from exhaustion, from fear. Seeing Samantha like that hurt in a way no Leviathan ever could. She was doing everything to protect her kids, and here she was, following absurd rules from a store that felt like it wanted to eat its staff. Joanna felt the same sting she used to feel when she was Samantha's age, following their father's orders without fully understanding what they were running from. "You okay?" Joanna asked. Samantha took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm trying. I just want to keep my kids safe. I don't want them to grow up thinking this is normal." That hit Joanna like a punch. It was exactly what she and her brother had lived. Rules about doors, rules about curfews, rules about not asking too many questions. Not so different from the Stop and Go manual. Just swap out monsters for responsibilities. Steve noticed the silent moment between the two of them. His expression shifted, just for a second, to something more serious. The kind of seriousness he tried not to show, because it gave away a past he preferred to keep tucked in his pocket next to his car keys. To cut the tension, he went ahead and made the one mistake any supernatural expert would tell you to avoid. "I'm gonna check out the bathroom," he announced. Samantha's eyes widened. "No. Rule 3. Don't open the door after 11:30. "It's not 11:30 yet," Steve said. "And I'm not opening it. I'm just talking loudly near it." He walked slowly toward the bathroom. The hallway felt colder than it should. He tapped the door twice, lightly. "Hey, if there's some kind of freak in there, this is the perfect moment to make noise and save me some time." "Steve, don't provoke it," Joanna said. "This is part of the process. Observe, react, say strategic nonsense." He touched the doorknob. It didn't turn. It wasn't unlocked. Even so, the door vibrated like something on the other side had just woken up. Scratches started on the surface. Small at first, like a child's nails, then stronger. Steve stepped back, and the doorknob began turning slowly, without any human hand on it. A thin sound, like a child's voice, echoed from inside the door. "Okay, sorry. Got it." Steve backed up quickly. Closed door is a good door. Samantha covered her mouth, startled. This has never happened before the cutoff time. Never. When the movement stopped, Steve took a deep breath and crouched down. He touched a dark streak near the bottom. The dried liquid stuck to his skin, leaving a dark mark. "This isn't just blood," he said. "It smells like burnt oil mixed with metal, like it came from inside an engine. But it's not petroleum. I don't know what this is." Joanna knelt down beside him. "It looks old, but it's not fully dry, like this thing is still leaking." Steve wiped his hand with a tissue, but some of the residue clung to his skin. A cold feeling ran up his arm. The light flickered, but without a pattern. Not 3 flickers in a row, just uneven ones like electrical hiccups. The customers still in the store didn't seem to notice. A man grabbed a soda and walked to the counter. But Joanna noticed his reflection in the freezer door. The reflection was slightly delayed. The image blinked a fraction of a second after the real movement. She hid her surprise but touched Steve's arm. "Did you see that guy's reflection?" she asked softly. "No." "What about it?" "It didn't match his body. Like a frozen video frame." Steve looked closely at the glass. Outside in the parking lot there was no one. Still, out of the corner of his eye, he saw the shadow of someone standing by the gas pump. When he turned, there was nothing. The lot was empty. The wind blew loose wrappers across the pavement, but that was it. The store had started breathing heavier. Joanna and Samantha stepped into the employee area for a few minutes. Samantha pulled an old jacket from her locker and sat down like she was carrying too much weight in her chest. "I'm going to quit this job," she said. "I just can't yet. I can't support my kids without it. But I wake up every day afraid to come back. And when I get here, I feel like something's waiting for me to walk down the wrong hallway." Joanna took a deep breath. "I know what it's like to live that way, following rules that seem crazy. But sometimes, following the rules is the only thing keeping us from falling into the dark." Samantha looked at her with surprise, like she'd finally found someone who understood, and she had. A few minutes later, a power outage shook the store lights. The parking lot stayed lit by the street lamps, but inside the Stop and Go everything went black all at once. A heavy darkness replaced the world. Steve turned on his phone flashlight, but before he did, he felt something touch his shoulder. The touch was slimy, cold, like a hand soaked in oil had rested on him. He spun around fast, but there was no one behind him. Just a dark stain stuck to his shirt. "Joanna," he called, his voice tighter than he wanted it to be. "This isn't a demon. It's not a spirit. This is something else." She saw the shape of the mark. It wasn't human. It wasn't organic. It was the signature of something that didn't want to be understood. "This place isn't haunted," Joanna said. "It's being used as a door." They didn't know what for yet, but they knew it wasn't human, and it wasn't outside. It was coming in. The morning sun felt weaker than it should have as Steve and Joanna returned to the cheap motel just outside Riverdale. The hallway carpet smelled like mold and cheap disinfectant, and the room looked like it had been decorated by someone who'd never heard of the word comfort. Still, it felt safer than the Stop and Go, at least for a few hours. Joanna dropped her bag on the bed and opened her laptop. She pushed aside a stack of local newspapers they'd collected before leaving the store. Steve tossed his jacket in a corner and pulled a chair up beside her. "Let's start with the basics," Joanna said, sorting through the yellowed clippings. The headlines all looked the same, repetitive, like echoes of cases no one had ever solved. Mysterious disappearance in Riverdale. Body found severely mutilated. Camera failure hinders investigation. It was like the past had written the same riddle over and over, and no one had noticed. Steve rubbed his face hard. "There's a pattern. There always is. There is. And it starts years before Samantha ever worked there," Joanna replied. "Look at this. First recorded case was a woman found behind the store in the 90s. Same thing. Body in pieces. No struggle. No witnesses. And the store only operated limited hours back then, but there were still power failures. Power cutting out at just the right moment is always the fingerprint of something trying to get in. Steve said. Or trying to get out. Joanna set aside a stack of photos and opened the laptop. On the desktop, she pulled up the digitized file of the Myers family grimoires. Old documents, photos of handwritten pages, diagrams of creatures that shouldn't exist. She scrolled to the section on pre-angelic beings. That part always felt dangerous, like the symbols were still vibrating even inside the screen. Steve leaned his chin on his hand. Let's kill this thing already. It's not a demon, not a shapeshifter, not a Wendigo, definitely not a Rougarou. Agreed, Joanna said, cross-referencing the information. The victims all had twisted skin, limbs stretched in unnatural ways. There's black fluid on the marks, not oil, not regular blood. That always shows up in reports about very old things. Steve tapped his finger on the screen when the term appeared. Black fluid. Doesn't take a genius to know what that means. Joanna didn't answer right away. She took a deep breath, like she was preparing her body to accept the conclusion. Leviathan, she said. The word filled the room with a heavy presence. Leviathans weren't just monsters. They were the kind of creature whose existence asked questions no one wanted to answer. Beings from before order, too ancient to fit into the world. Steve flopped down onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. We should charge double when the case involves something that reminds us the universe was born wrong. It's not a regular Leviathan, Joanna said, continuing her research. The reports show signs of a manifestation attempt, but incomplete. Like the gas station is sitting on a weak spot in the barrier. Steve sat back up. Then the rules make sense. They're like improvised plugs, a daily ritual. Not to banish, but to keep things from slipping through. When someone breaks a rule, Joanna finished, it opens a temporary rift. Tiny, just enough for them to test the edge. Push. Try to understand the human body as a vessel. Steve folded his arms. And the bathroom is the weakest point. Joanna shook her head. Maybe not the only one, just the most obvious. What worries me is the energy pattern. The blackouts follow a logic. They happen when someone tries to dodge the rule, and when the creature tries to use a body as a channel. Like that woman with the twisted neck, Steve said. Exactly. Her body was being piloted, but it wasn't the final form. Steve stood and started pacing in small circles. So we've got a door, an improvised ritual, and a monster that wants to figure out how to wear the right skin so it can come in whole. I hate it when the question isn't how to kill it, but how to keep it from being born. Joanna closed the laptop. This isn't about killing. It's about containing. If that breach fails, it's not one Leviathan that comes through. It's a swarm. And Riverdale becomes a footnote in a classified report. They returned to the gas station just before the next shift. The sky was clear, but the air felt heavy, like the day had been drained out of it. Thomas was waiting for them in the stockroom, holding a box full of yellowed papers and hand-drawn diagrams. He looked like a tired teacher about to admit the lesson was impossible to teach. I need you to see this, he said, spreading the materials across a metal table. They were symbols, none from any ordinary manual, repeated on doors, frames, outlets, hinges. Some reinforced with black paint, others carved in with a knife. This keeps the seams stable, Thomas explained. The previous manager used to say the ground here is like a wound that needs to be closed every day. William helps when he can. He feels when something's about to break through. William's not human, Joanna said flatly, not as a question. Thomas didn't deny it. He's here because he understands the other side better than we do. He doesn't talk much, but he knows when the pressure rises. Steve studied one of the diagrams and tapped the tip of his pencil on a red-marked spot. This here, in the bathroom plumbing, that's an anchor. Joanna crossed her arms. A partial anchor. Something caught between both sides. It's almost certain. But if we only focus on the bathroom, we'll miss the rest. The weak points are spread out. Thomas took a deep breath. That's why there are so many rules. Because the whole store is the problem. A loud pop echoed down the hallway as a localized power surge cut out half the lights. For a second, Steve saw the reflection in the glass door. A human figure stood outside, leaning against the glass, like it was melting into it. Its mouth stretched far past the limits of a jaw. Its eyes dripped dark liquid. When he turned to look directly, there was nothing there, only smeared streaks like fresh paint. "This has been happening more and more," Thomas said, not surprised. Joanna studied the glass carefully. "They're testing the boundaries, the store's getting weaker." Steve let out a deep breath. "Then we stay through the night. Us, Samantha, Ashley. We map the entry pattern and find the source." Outside, the empty parking lot received 3 figures walking slowly, aimlessly, without expression, like they had forgotten how to use the bodies they carried. They stopped in front of the station, still, like sentinels with no command. The sun was still out, but it already felt like night had arrived from the inside. The store's stillness at the start of the shift carried an uncomfortable weight, like the whole building was holding its breath before the crash. Samantha checked the rules with near-military precision. Ashley was documenting every step. Steve nudged a shelf with his foot to test its stability and muttered that not even an earthquake would knock it over. Joanna moved along the store's edges, marking spots with white chalk mixed with borate while checking her growing list of notes on her phone. Thomas watched the pair silently, like someone who's seen this kind of storm before and knows how it ends. At 10:58 p.m., Steve made his usual joke. 2 minutes till night turns into a person. Joanna squeezed his arm tightly, not to shut him up, but to remind him they were standing on the edge. At 11 p.m., they locked the doors. Each latch clicked like a sentence being read in court. Thomas let out a final breath and shut off the main light. The station sank into shadows, tinted yellow by flashlights. Tension spread like mold growing along the walls. The first power cut hit like a punch. A sharp crack, the hum of the lights vanishing, and a sudden heaviness in the air. The store vibrated in scattered spots. Silence outside. No cars, no owls, nothing. Even the insects seemed to have signed the pact to stay away. Steve raised the shotgun, holding it steady. "Just to be clear, if this place blows up, I said more than once we should have been sleeping at the motel." Joanna replied that if he'd been sleeping, the motel would have been on fire first. He muttered that he had a special talent for falling for women who didn't let him run. Scratching began near the bathroom. Fast, like wet nails on metal. Then behind the back door. Then on the ceiling. As if 3 different creatures were testing weak points at once. The scratching didn't follow a human rhythm. It was more like hands multiplying and losing shape as they tried to tear through. Ashley covered her mouth. Samantha gripped the clipboard like it was a shield. Thomas planted his feet, but sweat streamed down his face. Through the front glass, shadows approached. Human shapes, or something trying to look human. The husks from the night before. They stopped just inches from the glass but didn't knock, didn't breathe, didn't blink. They looked like life-sized photos pasted to the window, until one neck stretched a few millimeters beyond what was natural and started to tremble, like someone inside was rearranging the bones. Joanna warned they were going to hit multiple points. Steve was already sliding a line of homemade Borat barrier down the energy drink aisle. He kept talking while he worked, trying to keep his mind steady. "If these things are really pre-everything, I kinda miss the days when vampires were the real problem." A crack opened in the corner of the hallway. Not a crack in the building, a crack in the air, like someone had unzipped the invisible. From it, thick black fluid oozed out, spreading across the floor, dense like engine grease. Its surface pulsed in uneven beats, like it was trying to breathe. Something started to push through. First a hand with long fingers, but the number of fingers changed every second. Then part of a face that looked human, but melted, rearranged, and tried again. Steve stepped back and said, "Don't shoot yet. I might aim for the nose and the nose decides to move." Joanna grabbed the Borat cleaning solution Steve had prepped and threw it onto the creature. The result was instant. The black fluid foamed like hot oil hitting cold water. The creature pulled back into the crack, screeching in a sound that was half children laughing, half pigs being slaughtered. Samantha cried without realizing it. The store shook. Another point gave way in the ceiling, and another tear opened. Something like an arm dripped through, but the arm had joints where joints shouldn't be. When it touched the shelf, it left behind a dark burn mark. Steve fired. The blast tore through the limb and severed it. The thing hit the ground and kept twitching, like it was trying to find its way back to the body. "That's disgusting," Steve said. Joanna replied, "That's not even the scary part." He asked her to be more optimistic. She said she wouldn't lie, not even for her own sanity. William appeared out of nowhere, no footsteps, holding a device that looked like a flashlight fused with a compass. He walked straight to the bathroom and pressed the device to the base of the door. The wood vibrated. The entire floor beneath the bathroom did too. It was like something massive was pushing from inside but didn't have a stable enough shape to pass through. Thomas was drawing black ink symbols in the store's corners. Joanna directed where each one needed to go, pointing like someone solving a puzzle under fire. Steve moved between both teams, covering them and keeping anything from getting close. Every Leviathan that touched the floor left behind dark stains that evaporated slowly, like living tar. Then came the mistake. A figure appeared near the counter. Mark's body. Same shirt, same hair, same cut above the eyebrow he'd shown in a photo days earlier. Samantha screamed. Ashley ran behind Steve. But Samantha took a step forward, breaking the formation completely. Joanna saw it first. The eyes were wrong. Mark's face looked rushed, like a bad taxidermist had tried to recreate a human smile. The mouth opened late. The voice came out rough, repeating Samantha's name like it was reading off a cue card. Joanna yelled that it wasn't him. Steve hesitated for half a second, and that hesitation almost got Ashley killed. The creature lunged. Steve fired. Mark's face collapsed on impact, revealing smooth, black surfaces underneath, rippling like hungry gelatin. Samantha dropped to her knees. The ceiling partially gave in. For a moment, they all saw what shouldn't be seen. A sky that wasn't a sky. A darkness spinning in on itself, like an eye trying to focus on the wrong world. The tears sealed shut when William slammed the device into the floor and a dry crack rang out. The pressure dropped. The shadows outside took a few steps back, then stopped. The rest of the battle was containment. Borate sizzling against creatures trying to crawl through smaller tiers. Symbols glowing through ink. Distant screams with no visible source. When the sun began to rise, the Leviathans retreated like waves pulled back by a sudden tide. The store went still. Each person breathed like it was the first breath of their life. Victory was there. But the night had left marks on everyone that no one would ever erase. When silence finally settled over the stop and go, it felt like an intruder. Nothing in that place had the right to be calm. Broken shelves scattered on the floor, the ceiling patched together by morning light, and the thick smell of scorched barat said otherwise. Samantha stood in the middle of the wreckage, breathing like someone who had just lost and regained her life in the same shift. Ashley wiped her face with the hem of her shirt, trying not to cry in front of the Myers. Thomas took quick notes, but the look in his eyes made it clear. This wasn't new to him. The black pickup truck arrived without warning. No plates, no logos. 3 people stepped out dressed in a way that screamed government, but they showed no ID. They greeted Thomas like they were there to collect roadkill. One handed him a thick envelope, just cash. Thomas took it without protest. The routine of someone who already knew the world had too many secrets to fit into official reports. Steve watched the men while breaking down the shotgun. Joanna was collecting what was left of the burned symbols on the floor, trying to understand what it actually held through the night. The agents asked no questions. They just scanned the place with cold eyes, marking structural failure points. One pointed at the bathroom. Another typed something into a tablet without even looking up. When they left, the store seemed to exhale. Like the building itself hated being seen by people who didn't understand what lived behind its walls. Samantha walked up to the Myers. Her eyes were swollen, her body exhausted, but her voice was steady. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened to me. Or to my kids." Joanna placed a hand on her shoulder. "You held the rules. That's why this ended the way it did." "I almost broke one," Samantha whispered. "When I saw Mark, I really thought it was him." Steve nodded, a hint of grief in his expression. "These things know how to use our memories. I still don't get how, but they do." Samantha clasped her hands, trying to shake off the guilt. "I'm staying," she said. "I can't leave this." Now I know what this place is. I know what happens if no one's watching. Joanna glanced at Steve for a second. It was an old reflex, one they got from their father. That silent recognition of someone who grew up following rules that never made sense. Until the day they made too much sense. Ashley stepped closer, still trembling a bit. "I'm not taking any more night shifts just for the extra pay," Ashley said. "Just thinking about how I was here yesterday complaining about the bad coffee. The coffee's still bad," Steve said, dead serious. "But now it's the least of your problems." Ashley laughed, more out of nerves than humor. Joanna gave the girl's arm a gentle squeeze. "You're part of what keeps this standing," she said. "Don't downplay what you do here." Thomas called the two Myers to the back of the store. He opened a wooden box locked with 3 latches. Inside were old papers, diagrams, maps marked with red dots. "There are other stores like this one," he said. "Weak points, places where the fabric can't hold back the pressure from what's on the other side. Not many, but enough to keep people like us busy." Steve picked up one of the maps. "You're telling me there are more cursed gas stations scattered around the country?" "Not cursed," Thomas corrected. "Necessary. Gates need guardians. This is just one of them." Joanna studied the diagrams closely. From the drawings, it looked less like a security system and more like a lung barely working with patches and stitches. "You offering us a job?" she asked. "I'm offering you information," Thomas said. "Information that might help the two of you stay alive longer than your father did." The silence that followed was short but heavy. Joanna folded the map, nodded in thanks, and slipped the paper into the inside pocket of her jacket. When the cleanup crew finished gathering what they could, Steve and Joanna walked back to the car. The cold morning light glinted off the shards of glass scattered across the asphalt. Steve took off his jacket to toss it in the back seat and noticed a nearly invisible thread of black liquid clinging to the hem. A trace that shouldn't have been there after the battle. He wiped it off with a paper towel, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. "You okay?" Joanna asked. "Yeah. Just thought this case wouldn't leave a souvenir. I was wrong." Joanna gave a tired half smile. "A lot of monsters die. Some leave cracks behind. We just learn how to live with them." Joanna's phone buzzed. A message from Samantha. A photo of Emma and Jacob sleeping on the couch wrapped in a blanket with cartoon prints. The caption was simple. "Thank you." Joanna put the phone away slowly, with a weight in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. "Let's leave a few reinforced symbols along the road before we go," she said. "Of course," Steve replied. "I'm never stepping into a gas station relaxed again, not even for gum." They got in the car. Thomas waved from a distance, already organizing new protocols for the next night. The store, damaged as it was, felt alive, like it was still listening. When Steve started the engine, Joanna looked out the window one last time. The stop-and-go's lights flickered, trying to stay on. The bathroom was closed. Quiet. Everything in place. Everything following the rules. The car pulled away down Riverdale's empty road. Behind them, long after morning had taken over the sky, a security camera inside the store captured a brief movement, a shadow shifting behind the bathroom door. The file saved that split second, right before it turned to static. The rules kept the night outside. The real problem was when the night learned how to read.